There's a quiet moment most people experience at some point in their lives. It doesn't come with fireworks, it doesn't announce itself loudly. It usually happens late at night or during a slow morning, or maybe after checking your bank account and wondering, am I really doing enough for my future? And in that moment, one question tends to surface. Am I actually prepared for retirement? Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, structurally. Because retirement isn't just about money. It's about freedom, dignity, and the ability to choose how you spend your time when your working years are behind you. And yet, for something so important, most people feel overwhelmed trying to understand the tools available to them. Terms like 401k, IRA, Roth, SEP, 403b, 457, they get thrown around so casually as if everyone should already understand them. But the truth is, most people don't. And that's exactly why we need to slow this down, strip away the confusion, and walk through it in a way that actually makes sense. Because once you understand how these accounts work, not just technically, but strategically, you begin to see something powerful. You're not just saving money, you're designing your future. Let's start with the foundation, the 401k. If you've ever had a traditional job, chances are you've heard about a 401k. It's one of the most common retirement tools available, and for good reason. At its core, a 401k is simple in concept, but powerful in impact. It's a retirement account that allows you to set aside money from your paycheck before taxes are taken out and invest it for the long term. That one detail, before taxes, might not sound exciting at first, but it changes everything because it means you're lowering your taxable income today. Imagine earning $75,000 a year. If you contribute $10,000 into your 401k, you're no longer taxed on the full $75,000. You're taxed on $65,000 instead. That difference, it stays in your pocket, or more accurately, it gets redirected into your future. And over time, that matters more than most people realize. The hidden power, tax-deferred growth. Now here's where things get interesting. The money you invest inside a 401k doesn't just sit there, it grows. And it grows in a very specific way, tax-deferred. That means you don't pay taxes on your investment gains each year. No taxes on dividends, no taxes on capital gains. Instead, everything compounds quietly in the background, year after year, decade after decade, until one day you look at your account and realize that what you built wasn't just savings, it was momentum, but there's a trade-off. Eventually, when you withdraw that money, typically after age 59, 1-2, you'll pay taxes on it as ordinary income. And if you withdraw too early, there's usually a 10% penalty on top of the taxes, not because the system is trying to punish you, but because it's trying to protect you from short-term decisions that could cost you long-term security. Because here's the truth. Every dollar you take out early is a dollar that never got the chance to grow. The mindset shift. Most people miss a 401k isn't just an account. It's a commitment. It's a quiet agreement you make with your future self. You're saying, I'm willing to delay gratification today so I can live with more freedom tomorrow. And that's not always easy, especially when life gets expensive and when unexpected things happen, when it feels like you could use that money right now. But the people who build real financial security aren't necessarily the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who stay consistent, who treat their 401k not as optional, but as essential. The often overlooked advantage, employer match. Now, if there's one feature of the 401k that you should never ignore, it's this, the employer match. Some employers will match a portion of what you contribute. For example, they might say, we'll match 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. What does that mean in real life? It means if you contribute, they contribute too. That's not an investment return. That's not market growth. That's instant money. And yet, many people leave it on the table. They don't contribute enough to get the full match, which is essentially like turning down part of your salary without even realizing it. If you do nothing else, do this. Always contribute enough to get the full employer match, because opportunities like that are rare. But what if you want more control? Enter the IRA now. Not everyone works for an employer that offers a 401k. And even if you do, you might want more flexibility. That's where the IRA, individual retirement account, comes in. Unlike a 401k, an IRA isn't tied to your employer. You can open one on your own. All you need is earned income. And that independence matters because it gives you control. Control over where you invest, control over how you allocate your money, control over your long-term strategy. Traditional IRA, familiar but different. A traditional IRA works similarly to a 401k in many ways. Your contributions may be tax deductible, your investments grow tax deferred, and you'll pay taxes when you withdraw in retirement. But there's one key difference: contribution limits. They're lower, which means you can't put in as much each year compared to a 401k. But that doesn't make it less valuable. In fact, for many people, it becomes a critical second layer of retirement planning because it allows you to keep building even beyond your workplace plan. And then everything changes, the Roth revolution. Now, everything we've talked about so far follows a similar pattern. You get a tax benefit today and pay later. But what if you flip that? What if you paid taxes now and never again? That's the idea behind Roth accounts. And this is where things start to feel different. Because Roth accounts aren't just about saving money, they're about creating certainty. Roth 401k, paying today for peace. Tomorrow, with a Roth 401k, you contribute after-tax money, so you don't get a tax break up front. But in return, something powerful happens. Your money grows completely tax-free, not tax-deferred, not partially taxed, completely tax-free. That means when you withdraw in retirement, every dollar is yours. No surprises, no uncertainty, no wondering what tax rates will look like in the future. And if you've ever thought about how unpredictable taxes can be, you start to see why this matters. A deeper question: who should choose Roth? This isn't just a financial decision, it's a philosophical one. You're essentially asking, do I want the tax benefit now or later? If you believe your income and therefore your tax rate will be higher in the future, Roth becomes incredibly attractive because you're locking in today's tax rate. But if you expect your income to be lower in retirement, the traditional route might make more sense. There's no universal answer, only what aligns with your life, your goals, and your expectations. And then there's the Roth IRA, arguably the most flexible tool. If there's one account that consistently stands out, it's the Roth IRA, not because it's flashy, but because it's versatile. It gives you tax-free growth. It gives you flexibility with contributions, and it gives you options, something most financial tools don't. Here's what makes it unique. You can withdraw your contributions, not earnings, at any time, without penalties. That doesn't mean you should treat it like a savings account, but it does mean you're not completely locked in. And psychologically, that matters because people are more likely to invest when they don't feel trapped. But there's a catch: the 5-year rule. Like all good things, there are conditions. With a Roth IRA, you need to wait 5 years before withdrawing earnings tax-free. And that rule exists for a reason, because again, this isn't meant to be short-term money. It's meant to grow, to compound, to become something much bigger over time. For those building something of their own, the SEP IRA. There's a different kind of responsibility that comes with being self-employed. No automatic payroll deductions, no employer match, no built-in system guiding you toward retirement. It's just you. And while that freedom can be empowering, it can also be risky if you don't put structure in place. That's where the SEP IRA, Simplified Employee Pension IRA, comes in. This account was designed specifically for people who run their own business or work independently. And unlike the traditional IRA, the contribution limits here are significantly higher. which means something important. You have the ability to accelerate your retirement savings in a way that most employees simply can't. Instead of being limited to a few $1,000s per year, you can contribute a much larger portion of your income, up to a defined cap or percentage. And just like the traditional IRA, those contributions are typically tax deductible. So not only are you building for the future, you're also reducing your tax burden today. But here's the real takeaway. When you don't have an employer setting up your retirement plan, you have to become your own system. And the SEP IRA is one of the most effective ways to do that. A different path, the 403B. Now, not everyone works in the corporate world. Some people dedicate their careers to education, healthcare, nonprofits, or religious organizations. And for those individuals, the retirement landscape looks a little different. Instead of a 401k, you may have access to a 403b. On the surface, it looks almost identical. You contribute pre-tax money. Your investments grow tax deferred. You withdraw later and pay taxes then. But the structure behind it is tailored for organizations that aren't driven by profit. And there's something quietly meaningful about that, because even in careers that are built around service, around giving back, around helping others, you still deserve a secure future. One interesting feature of the 403b is that long-term employees, those who stay with the same organization for many years, may have the opportunity to contribute even more. It's a small recognition of loyalty, a way of saying, we see your commitment and we want to support your future too. The often overlooked option, the 457 plan. Then there's another account that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, the 457 plan. This one is typically available to government employees and certain nonprofit workers. At first glance, it seems very similar to the 403b. Same idea, same contribution limits, same general structure. But there's one key difference that sets it apart: flexibility. With a 457 plan, you can withdraw money after leaving your employer without the usual 10% early withdrawal penalty. Think about that for a moment. Most retirement accounts are designed to lock your money away until a specific age, but the 457 gives you a bit more breathing room, a bit more control. Of course, you'll still pay taxes on what you withdraw, but the absence of that penalty can make a significant difference, especially for those who may retire early or transition careers. Now let's step back. How do you actually use these accounts together? Because understanding each account individually is helpful, but the real power comes from knowing how they fit together. And this is where strategy begins. The order that changes everything. If you're wondering where to start or how to prioritize, there's a simple framework that can guide you. Not a rigid rule, but a thoughtful sequence. Step 1, capture the employer match. If your job offers a 401k match, contribute enough to get the full benefit, because again, that's free money. And in investing, free money is something you don't ignore. Step 2, build flexibility with an IRA. After securing the match, consider contributing to an IRA, especially a Roth IRA if you qualify. Why? Because it gives you more control, more investment choices, more flexibility, more long-term advantages. Step 3, return to your workplace plan. Once you've built that foundation, you can go back and contribute more to your 401k or equivalent plan. At this stage, you're not just participating, you're optimizing. The investment question. Most people overcomplicate. At some point, another question comes up, like, what should I actually invest in? And this is where people often get stuck. They start researching endlessly, comparing funds, watching the market, trying to time things perfectly. But the truth is, simplicity often wins. For most people, the most effective approach is to focus on low-cost, diversified index funds, funds that track broad markets like the S&P 500, funds that don't try to beat the market, but instead move with it. Because over long periods of time, consistency tends to outperform complexity, and lower fees mean more of your money stays invested, working for you. A question of access. What if you earn too much for a Roth IRA? There's a point where income can limit your ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. And for some, that feels like a closed door. But in reality, it's more like a detour because there's a strategy known as the backdoor Roth IRA. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. You contribute to a traditional IRA and then convert it into a Roth. And just like that, you're back in. It's one of those lesser known strategies that can make a big difference over time. Can you combine traditional and Roth? Another common question, do you have to choose one or can you use both? The answer is you can absolutely use both. And in many cases, that balance can be powerful because it creates tax diversification. Some of your money will be taxed later. Some of it won't be taxed at all. And that flexibility gives you options when you retire. You're not locked into one tax scenario. You can adjust, adapt, choose what works best in the moment, but beyond all the accounts, there's a bigger picture. Because at some point, all the numbers, limits, and strategies fade into the background. And what remains is something simpler, the life you're building toward. Retirement isn't just a finish line, it's a transition from obligation to choice, from routine to freedom. And the accounts we've talked about, they're just tools. Powerful tools, but still just tools. What matters more is how consistently you use them, how intentionally you plan, how willing you are to think long-term in a world that constantly pulls you toward the short term. A quiet truth worth remembering. You don't have to get everything perfect. You don't need to max out every account immediately. You don't need to understand every detail on day one. What matters is that you start, that you stay consistent, that you keep learning, adjusting, improving, because over time, those small decisions compound, just like your investments. And one day, it adds up. One day, you'll look back, not at a single big moment, but at a series of small ones. The decision to contribute a little more, the choice to stay invested when things felt uncertain, the discipline to think beyond today, and you'll realize something powerful. You didn't just prepare for retirement. You built a life where you have options, and in the end, that's what this is really about. If you take anything from this, let it be this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional, because the future you is depending on the decisions you make today.